Hello guys, how's it going? Screwzilla here. I hope you are all well. So, today I'm doing a video on the PE-8. As you can probably see, the original Death Star. So, the PE-8, or the TB-7 as it was originally designated, is a pretty epic plane. It's got a bit of history about it, and in reality it didn't live up to the expectations that you would have thought it would have. It was pretty underwhelming in its real life role. So the TB-7, or as it became known, the Petlyakov PE-8, primarily after the primary designer of the plane, Vladimir Petlyakov, died in a plane crash in '42, hence the name the PE-8. They named it after him, out of mark of respect. It was a large quad-engine, long-distance bomber. Had a payload capability of 5,000 kilograms, about 8,000 pounds. Pretty hefty load, in all honesty. And it's one of the forgotten planes of World War II. It's very much a rarer plane of the era as well, with a total production of 93 through the whole of the war. So there wasn't a lot made of these, hence there's not many surviving. I think there's 2 that survive now, and neither of them fly. So the PE-8 was designed to replace the ancient TB-3, a plane that was outdated by the time it came into service back in 1932. The Petlyakov design was started in 34, dyslexic, yay. After the Russian military came to terms with the fact that they needed a more modern heavy bomber to keep up with the British, the Americans and the Germans, of course. They needed something that was sort of an equivalent to their bombing capabilities. They stated they needed a plane capable of carrying 2,000 kilograms of bombs at 4,500 kilometers at a speed greater of about 440 kilometers an hour, about 270 miles per hour, and with an altitude of about 10,000 feet. So a high altitude, long range, heavy bomber, basically. The design bureau was taken on. The design was taken on by Tupolev Design Bureau, where Andrei Tupolev and Vladimir Petlyakov began work on it. It ended up being a mix of the Tupolev SB and the TB-3, basically. So the front end of the plane, very similar to the SB. Also similar to the IL-4 as well, just a bigger design, basically. The IL-4 is almost like a smaller PE-8. And of course the TB-3, the big 4-engine bomber with some heavy armament and good defensive capabilities. So it was a sort of mixture of the two. It was made mainly of Dura aluminium, with steel spars put in. So it was it wasn't a heavy plane. It wasn't a light plane by all means, but it was made quite on a light scale. It also used cloth over the ailerons instead of using aluminium or anything like that. So it was a sort of mixture of aluminium cloth, well, Dura aluminium cloth and steel to make up this plane, which helped keep costs down, and also helped with the fact that it could take a fair bit of damage, and it was a pretty durable plane and pretty easy to sort of fix on the ground, which was needed for the Russians, because they did have a lot of problems with resources. The prototype was a 5-engine machine when it was originally made. So the original plane actually had a 5th engine in the fuselage, just behind the pilots here. Now this is where where the engineer and the navigator, radio operator would sit in the sort of plane that ended up coming to production. But originally there was going to be a 5th engine here, which would power a supercharger for the other 4 engines to give it more speed, better fuel efficiency, and better economy, things like that. So it did work very well, but it was just very costly, and it took up a lot of room, and it took up more bombing space, things like that. And of course it meant you couldn't have an engineer and a radio operator in there, which was kind of useful for this plane. The engineer actually could crawl out, and there was gaps between the wings where he could go and fix the engines during mid-flight, things like that. sounds like a horrible job, in fact, but it had that option eventually. So when they scrapped that, they sort of also scrapped another feature, which was the nose-mounted 20mm cannon in a gondola. It was called the Beard. So just under here where this viewing port is, it was actually a separate bit coming down. So it was almost a bit like the TB3. In fact, it has a similar sort of design. It had a 20mm cannon there pointing downwards, and also sort of pointing forwards for frontal defence. Now, this was replaced with the 7.62 as HKAS machine gun, just because they didn't need that cannon in the end. They found it wasn't much use. Now, the first plane took flight in 1936, the 27th of December. It was a good test flight. It flew well. They had some good results from it. They started getting some good data. However, it did have a lot of problems. The production was halted in 1937 when chief designers were arrested. So here we see the defensive capability. Got a lightning coming in. Trying to take us down to P-38. So, yeah, the designers were arrested in the Great Purge. So here we see really one of the strongest things in the plane. This is cannon. Bang. Wing is gone. One hit from that cannon and you're shredded. It's an incredibly handy cannon for this plane. I'll get more on that in a moment. So, in the Great Purge in 1937, they were arrested, and the plane was set back to 1938 before they could actually build the second test bed and continue testing when they were released from prison. Due to scarcity of resources and shortage of workers, again, because of the Great Purge, they had a lot of problems making this plane. Although production facilities in the Kazan factory number 124 were ready as early as 1937, the order to actually start work on this plane was not given until 1939, mainly due to them building PE-2s, things like that. So, due to many issues, the PE-8 underwent many changes, mainly for the engine design. In 1940, 9 PE-8s were actually fitted with the Choromsky M40 aircraft diesel engines, and these were actually really good. They did create a great increase in range of the aircraft, and also the torque was very good, so it did help with takeoff and things like that. Speed was a bit down, but range was sort of almost doubled by this engine. The only issue was it was a bit unreliable. So they changed back to the original AM35As by the end of 1941, and production continued slowly in Factory 124. Most factories' resources were devoted, as I say, to the PE-2. The last PE-8 were completed in 1944 as the PE-8ONS. These were special VIP transportation planes with seating capacity of 12 and cargo capacity of 1,200 kilograms. So pretty good capacity for cargo, and also apparently it was almost like a cat like the sky. They very much liked them, the Russian officials. In practice, the PE-8 served pretty well. It worked well as a long-range strategic bomber, mainly engaging high-priority targets such as airfields, rail yards, things like that. It was also largely used in Soviet propaganda because of the size of this plane and the look of it. It looks fantastic. I mean, you know, when you come up to one of these in-game, you are scared shitless because it's scary. It's a big plane, scary-looking plane. You know it's got those cannons. It looks huge, and it is huge, and it's got a huge payload, but it's still killable, of course. But the Soviet propaganda machine took up to this plane like ducks to water, basically. They had a lot of times flying it over the battlefield to boost morale of the troops. Daring moves, just to boost the ground troop morale. Often these proved fatal and suicidal for the crews, as there was quite a heavy loss rate with the slow lumbering bomber. mainly because the Germans had much more effective heavy fighters. Um, they would boom and zoom them, come in from the front. They learned that coming in from the front was fine. You'd zoom down, attack over the top, hit the wings, and you've got one dead PE-8. Another issue, of course, was flak. Because it's such a huge target, it was actually easy to hit. It's a slow-moving, huge target. The other issue, of course, is because of the propaganda this plane had, the German forces put priority on these planes for killing it. German pilots took great pride in killing the targets. It was a high-value target. They sent out squads specifically to take these down, and would even do airdrops of propaganda of their own, showing photos of them on fire or crashing over, Russian battlefields. There was a lot of propaganda in the war, and this plane took a fair bit of it. So I'm saying I'm a lot today, aren't I? Another issue was reliability, of course. 5 were lost in a short span due to engine failure, and division commander being mistakenly shot down by I-16s over the Baltic Sea, losing an engine and then being blown up by German flak did not help the plane. The main loss of PE-8 continued to be reliability, however, with a period from 1941, August 1941 to May 42, flying 226 sorties, dropping 606 tons of bombs. In the course of these missions, they lost 14 planes. 5 were from enemy fire, 9 were from reliability. We are dropping our bombs, so dropping 2,000 pounds of bombs on a base. Now, I've kept 2 bombs on board here because our team sort of half-killed a couple of bases. They finally managed to kill this base over here, so I thought, alright, I'm going to start heading back to base. Now, I know those priority targets are going to appear, so I'm going to keep 2 bombs on board just in case. Just as a backup, because by this time we'd lost all our fighters. It was just me, an IL-2, and another PE-8 left alive, and they weren't lasting very long either. One of the big issues with the PE-8 was because of the factories and the lack of resources. They were losing planes faster than they could be replaced. By the 1st of July 1943, the Battle of Kursk had begun. The PE-8s were now using the FAB 5,000 kilogram bombs, the big bombs, basically, and they proved pretty good. They were very useful bombs. Early in April, a flight a flight of 109 bombers hit the German rear lines. Although only a small number of them were PE-8s, the raid struck a blow to the German rail line and supplies, taking out 300 rail wagons and 3 ammunition trains. So a huge loss to the Germans there. So let's switch to that F4U, shall we? Oh, wrong way. There we go. So here's a fighter looking at the PE-8. So yeah, huge loss. The PE-8s were actually started to be used as night bombers from then on in, because they were having too many losses in daylight raids. And they turned out to be a pretty decent night bomber, for bombing at least. They were supporting the ground offensive at Orel Bulge. Operation Kuzyov began 12th of July. Germany had sent a large number of night fighters, the Nachjagerschwader. Okay, as you can tell, I speak a bit of German, but I'm not great with the accent. The Nachjagerschwader 5 or 4. A mix of Junkers Ju-28s and Dornier Do-217 aircraft to counter the Soviet raids near Orel. They were highly ineffective at the start because they didn't have any way of seeing the planes, and they had trouble finding them. So for that short period they were having troubles. By the 17th of July, however, Soviet losses increased sharply, and mainly because the Germans had set up the radar system on the ground. In one night, German pilots flew only 14 sorties. That night they claimed 8 kills. One of the main issues for the P-8 also was the fact that the engine had no flame dampening on it. So with the exhaust system of the planes, you could actually have a flame dampening, so you would not see as many sparks and flames at night. The Lancaster used that technology quite a lot to basically keep them hidden in the night. So here we see the Corsair coming in to the PE-8, firing off some baguettes at me, and sitting on my tail. So you can see the cannon shells flying around, and also the 12.7mm machine guns under the wings near the engines. So this guy's going to come in, keep flying around, try and get me to waste my ammo, basically. And it's a good way of doing it. So we'll continue. So the PE-8 flew 276 sorties in 1942. Here we see him coming up underneath me, which is the worst idea you can have, because he's sitting on my 6. And he is dead. Not the smartest move you can do on the PE-8. So, kill number 2 for me, this flight. Don't sit on the back of the PE-8. I'll get to that in a moment. The PE-8 flew 276 sorties in 1944, with the supposed last mission on the 2nd of August 1944. Although PE-8s were on hand until 45, it did not fly any more missions. It did get used after the war, though, the test bed, for flying the Russian version of the flying bombs, the U-2, things like that, the Doodlebug. The Russians built them and actually launched them off of the PE-8s, and it also found use as an Arctic explorer. So it got mainly used as that. So that's the PE-8. Now in game, it's much more successful than in real life. Although it did have great defensive capability and armament, it was not a huge success, mainly due to reliability though. However, with lack of numbers compared to other bombers at the time, so the Lancaster, the B-17, the Sterling, and even the HE-177, those are the planes it was most comparable to with bomb loads, things like that. Although the other planes did carry, other than the B-17, the other planes did carry more payload, but then had less defensive capabilities. On paper it was comparable to them, but with poor servicing and maintenance, it was nothing compared to those planes, really. However, when it was flying well, it flew very well. It has a very good speed and climb rate in game, dive rate as well. It's one of the easier heavy bombers to fly, I must admit. Because you can dive in it quite well, you've got a good payload, you've got amazing defensive armaments, as we've seen in this match. 2 planes that really can rip up anything else had trouble killing me, because they sort of sat in the wrong spot. But in a Lancaster or a Sterling, German bombers, you would be just destroyed in those instances, whereas the PE-8 can take that beating and dish out the punishment for it. Of course, the armaments, the 220mm cannons. So you've got the 20mm at the top here, in the gun pod, and at the back here, in the aft section of the plane. You've also got the engine nestles with the 12.7mm machine guns, so just under the wings here. Now these are really useful for anyone sitting on your 6, because they don't notice these as much, and people forget about these guns here. You know, they're pretty much 50 cals, you know, and they tear the crap out of most things. Very, very useful useful guns. So they're really handy, and they do a lot of damage. Not as much as the cannons, but they do a fair bit of damage. The real weak chink in the armour is the front, with the it's the 7.62mm machine gun, which is equivalent to a 303 Browning. It does nothing. You know, it really, it's a twin link, so you've got 2 of them, but they still do bugger all. Honestly, they're pretty hopeless. But that's the same with all of the English bombers and things like that. The only good English bomber defensive capable gun is on the second Lancaster, and that's because it's got the 50 cals at the back of it, and they're the only guns that are any use on that plane. Mini round. So you can take a fair bit of punishment, but also you can deal out a lot more punishment. All in all, it's an enjoyable plane to use. It's a little trollerific sometimes, but only if the enemy attacks without thinking. So we've seen twice now, the enemy have come in from the rear. And if you do that on a PE-8, you're going to die. You know, you might take it out, but most of the time you're going to die. And it's a silly move to make. And it's the mistake everybody makes on PE-8. They sit on its 6, about a kilometre away, and the cannons are effective for about 1.5 kilometres. You know, they will hit their target in that range. Because you're on a steady bed as well, unlike a fighter, you've got a steady bed and you can actually move your guns because they're in a turret. You can actually aim a lot easier with this, and it makes a huge difference. So don't sit on the rear of it and you will be fine. Best way to attack one is actually coming in from this angle, diving. So you dive down, go for the wings, strafe the wings and the pilots. So hit at this sort of angle, or this angle of course, and go for those sections. Dive down, keep diving, go in front of the plane, turn. So I'm using my hand, you can't see that. Turn here, come back around, swing around, go in front of the plane, start climbing again, and then dive again. Don't come in from the back, because this cannon here can't turn any more than this angle here. So if you're coming in from this angle, you can kill it. This angle, it will kill you. The pilots are very exposed as well, and they have no armour on them, so again they're an easy target to hit. Because they're line astern, so you've got one here and one here. If you fly in from the front, shoot the cockpit, strafe along here, they're both dead. Plane is down. Again, it's pretty easy to kill in some ways, but just don't sit on the rear. Best keep at a good altitude in the plane. As you've seen, keeping at about 4,000 metres is a really good sort of spot for the plane, because not many people will be above you, but lots will start climbing up towards you. You do want them to come in at slightly above angle, because then you get use of both cannons. However, as I said before, the 12.7 mils under here worked really well. So just dropping our bombs here on some cars, because we've got the ground vehicles for the instant win. Here the cannons firing away. So let's scooch down here. Very lucky car there, just didn't get hit by a cannon. So just going to move down to this angle. So at this point there was only a B-25 left in the game. He just activated blind. Well, he's just about to activate blind hunt. Bit of a waste really, because I've just killed all these vehicles. It's pretty obvious where I'm at. Yeah, I don't get some people. Anyway, bombing is a little bit tricky in the plane, because you do get the twin link bombs on the wings. So your first set of bombs are always going to drop 2, which is quite annoying sometimes. So especially with 1,000 kilograms, if there's a base that's half killed and you have to drop 2 bombs on it, it's really a waste. So try and get people to not kill one base or leave them. So here we see a PE-8 coming in for a ground strafe. So bomb target is quite good though. The targeting on the plane is good for about 4,000, 5,000 meters. You'll have, with a good trained crew, you'll have some good hits. So here we go, firing with the front guns and rear cannons on this last vehicle. Any moment now. Boom. Mission complete. So yeah, that's the PE-8 basically. As I said, main tips for the plane is keep enemies behind you. Just the score here actually. Yeah, as you can see, it was a bit of a domination in the PE-8. Got the most kills on my team. Yeah, we had a smaller team actually. We were down 3 planes on that match, and we won, which is quite handy. Always nice when you get a win and you kill a couple of planes. As you can see, when I'm in a dogfighting situation, I'm hopeless, but in a bomber, I'm actually okay. I'm sort of passable. Um, so yeah, the PE-8, it's a really good plane, especially for tank RB as well. Because of that big 5,000 kilogram bomb on it, you can do a ton of damage on this thing. You know, if you get a group of tanks together in a zone and you drop about 5,000 on them, they're dead. The 1,000 kilogram bombs also are really handy. As you can see here, the two on the outside, and then you get two in the middle. These two drop after one hit, so you just space bar to drop them on the target, and then double space on the next target, and you'll get 2 base kills easily. So yeah, that's about all really. Sorry I've been a bit late with some videos lately. I've been a bit unwell. Been having a bit of trouble in the real world. So I hope you forgive that. But there will be some more coming again soon. I'm actually looking for a new house at the moment, so my head's been a bit out of the place. But we'll be getting back to normal service anytime soon. Not sure what I'm going to do next, but it's probably going to be a bomber again because I prefer bombers, as you can tell. But we'll go from there. I hope you have a good day. I hope you all keep well, and safe flying to you all. This is Screezilla out, and I will catch you next time.